Okay. It's got, what time is it? It's 3 minutes past 8. We have a fair good attendance. We have 26. So, Sally, will I go ahead?
Yeah, you can work away.
Right. Look at Sligo Field Club members and new participants. A very good evening to each and every one of you. And you're all very, very welcome to tonight's lecture on Zoom. We've had, we thought we were getting back to normal, and we've had 2 committee meetings face to face. And but lo and behold, the numbers are on the increase again. So we could, it might be a while before we have a lecture face to face. So tonight's lecture is given by Professor Emeritus Michael O'Connell. The title of the lecture is The Horizontal Mill at Kilbegly, and that's on the N6 motorway. Advanced Technology in Medieval Roscommon. Now, who is Michael? Michael, having studied and researched in UCD, has spent most of his working life at NUI Galway, formerly UCG. As Professor Emeritus at NUIG, he continues to pursue research interests in long-term environmental change with particular focus on farming impact, woodland history, and climate change, using a variety of techniques and especially pollen analysis. His research in Ireland relates mainly to the western counties of Ireland, mainly the coast from Cork to Sligo. So, Michael, we're at the end of the boundary, Sligo, and of course, to celebrate the week that's ended with the closing of the Glasgow Climate Summit, COP26 this evening, this is our contribution to that summit, having Michael on this very topical subject. So, Michael, a very good evening to you, and you're very, very welcome to a Sligo Field Club lecture. Our first time having you. Good to have you, and it's over to you. And at the end of the program, we'll have questions and answers. So, Michael, take it away, please.
Okay, Martin, many thanks. Many thanks to you, to the club, for having me. I have actually, I think, given a talk years ago, long before your time, to to the Sligo Field Club, and of course it is, I suppose, really an exceptional club in that it is it's a real field club in that it embraces all things in the field, including the natural world, the built world, the and of course the archaeology and the history. So it is a really really nice to be able to come, and yeah, I might be able to leave Galway, leave here in Cloud, and I'm living here between the Cloud and Salt Hill, to leave my home here, but I'm with you in spirit anyhow, and lovely to be able to talk to you. Just to set the scene as well, I think Martin Timoney was largely responsible, hello Martin, there I see you, that for dragging me into this, as it were, because he happened to be, I gave a similar talk to this at Rathcrohan, many years ago, maybe even 10 years ago, it could be, maybe less. And so at the time he said, oh God, that was a nice lecture. And I said, oh, well, you know, okay, I did my best. And so he suggested that maybe you in Sligo would be interested in it. I was inclined to poo-poo the idea a bit, and because actually I'd forgotten, you know, quite a lot of the details, etc. I guessed I had anyhow. So in reality, it was lovely for me to go back, revise the thing in the last 24 hours or 48 hours and think about it for a little bit longer. And so I'm going back in my past and I'm exploring the past with you this evening. So that's the kind of introduction, as it were. Now I have to get used to this here as well. Advance to next slide. Yeah, here we are. Here's Kilbegly. It is in Roscommon. I kind of weep for Galway that it's not in Galway, but that's the situation. It is in Roscommon, right there at the border, just beyond, as it says here in the map, Bailagh and the Slua, Ballinasloe. The motorway is running along, the new motorway is running along there. So it's in this context that this was discovered. Just to set the context a little bit more for you, Rathcrowan, the visitor centre, is right up there. And I'll be talking to maybe if I get a chance to this bog a little bit to the west of Kilbegly, Ballinfuil. Now, in all, I've just had a look at, I'll mention this reference later on to you, Colin Wren. I should mention Colin, of course, is the expert in Ireland, in Europe, on horizontal mills. And I'll mention more about him later on. I just looked in, I hadn't seen this 2015 publication, so I came across this as I was working up a little bit on the lecture, and he states 153 horizontal medieval water mills known from the island of Ireland. I put in the island of Ireland because I think that's what he meant, because he was talking about he said Ireland. So as you know, my God, these days you never know really where you are. But I think that is correct. By the way, there's one right here beside me, Knocknacarra here. There's a water mill there. So 153 is a really substantial number. It's certain, I don't have the actual statistics in that, but it's certainly, we have more medieval horizontal water mills than any place else in Europe. I'm fairly certain. So we're really noted for it. Just to kind of fill you in a little bit better on the thing. So Galway at Lone, Kilbegly, Ballinasloe, and the motorway is the red line, and as you know, this is a little bit straighter than the motorway is, but that is the idea of the motorway. I think it just cuts it straight across, and actually at Ballinasloe it gives a wide berth to Ballinasloe, and here it is. Actually, it's going over the site in Kilbegly. You'll see this later on. By the way, I should just point out to you, Clonmacnoise is just over here. And of course, this is the River Shannon down here. So it's in a really nice location. Oh, it's all about milling. And of course, milling, once there were cereals, more or less, there had to be milling. And this is a photo, actually, I used this as well. I probably 2016, I see. So it was probably around that time that I gave the talk in Rathcrowan, and I had it up, and so I continued to use it because actually it's quite nice. So as all of you will probably know, it's a saddle quern, at least the basal stone of a saddle quern. The cereals barley probably here, and the plant, which actually looks more like rye to me here now, and the sickle for cutting off the ears. So it's all part of that story of milling of wheat. And this again is another photograph of a circular quernstone. More or less, we might think the common type. It is hand-driven, hand-powered. It's up in mainland Orkney. Again, I happened to be there 2013. And of course, as any of you who've been to Orkney or who know of it, the archaeology there is, well, second to Sligo, definitely. The Quernstones, of course, have this, sorry, I should say, this type of one here came in this type, circular rotating Quernstone came in probably someplace in the Bronze Age. And of course, they continued to be made and to be used until very recent times. I have this Quernstone, the top stone of at home, hang up on the wall on a garage or a wall in the back of the house, and you can see it's my father brought it up to me when he was alive a long time ago. It's made in 1810. It was made back in, I'm from Kilrush, and there were Quernstones, I think quite a number of them made around that time and later, even during the famine times when for grinding up yellow mail that came in, the maize that came in the time of the famine. So they have a real long history. And of course, Quernstones are more or less indestructible. So we still find them, have them, and cherish them, I would hope. Now, I had this on my collection of slides. I thought, oh, I will still use it because I distinctly remember when we started out in Kilbegly, I knew very little actually about horizontal mills. Not that I proclaim myself to be an expert right now, definitely far from it, but I thought you might like to know of these two really nice books. I haven't looked at them again. I have them actually, but haven't looked at them again. The Archaeology of Mills and Milling by this Martin Watts, English as far as I recall. And then this beautiful volume, again published by Braille, again, this is 2000, and with this lovely medieval illustration of a water mill. Now, it's not a horizontal mill, but you can see the stream coming along. It's an overshot vertical mill and a little mill house, and it's driving the mill wheel inside. So really nice. And by the way, Colin, name God, he has a beautiful article in this. I think I've codged some of the figures from that. Now, Colin Rain's, this article that I mentioned, I said I'd refer you back. I deal with a little bit 2015. Again, if you're interested in some beautiful illustrations in it, etc., etc. This article by Colin, of course, who writes very well. If you see any of his stuff, it's always well written. By the way, this journal here, the International Journal for the History of Technology, Engineering Technology, is published by Taylor and Francis. And just a hint, I was looking up this, and I actually saw the Taylor and Francis, their books. I think this week is Open Access Week for some, at least, of Taylor and Francis publications. And, you know, they have a nice catalogue of books, etc. Now, I tell you the truth, I hadn't time to look at it. So but you might like to have a look at it. Then, this is the working, his chapter in 2000 in that nice cover book with the medieval illustration. This is a kind of a wonderful chapter as well by Colin Rain. And I just thought I'd mention one other one where Colin has in anything to do with mills in Ireland, water mills, horizontal water mills especially. Colin is there, and he's some beautiful, you've probably seen this, you have this book probably, the High Island, an Irish monastery in the Atlantic, and he has some, again, a fine account of the mill there. And the mill in this is, I was again lucky to get out there recently, well, a few years ago, and the mill is here. So, you know, High Island, by the way, off Clonduff in Renville, wonderful place, difficult to get to because it's like Skellig Vihil. The weather has to be good. Now, I've just pulled out this illustration to show you, to remind you, I'm sure, the basics of the mill, of a mill. This is not a horizontal water, this is the vertical mill. You have the mill wheel, you have the it could be an undershot like here, or the water is coming in presumably this way. An undershot, the water is coming flying through, putting the wheel going round, and then there's some type of gearing mechanism here to bring it to the millstones here, the bottom one stationary, the top one rotating, and then the hopper to feed in the corn into the millstone. Now, by the way, I think horizontal and vertical mills are coeval in Ireland virtually, and but I illustrate this because it's nice to illustrate this in the sense of that you will see that has the extra complication because there is this gearing. This gearing is not, it's a key feature, is not in the horizontal mill. Now, here is a nice illustration. I dragged this out a time ago from the internet of an illustration of a horizontal mill. I rather liked it because I imagine this as being Kilbegly, or probably in reality it is maybe bringing in Clonmacnoise into it. I don't know whether that was the case. What the age of this drawing is, I forget, but it is really nicely done. You have the horizontal mill, and you see immediately no gearing. It is direct power from the wheel, from the wheel down here up onto the top stone, and they're grinding away here. The flume, which is really important, note a nice illustration, hitting the pedals of the wheel, and off the water is flowing then. And then you can see here nicely as well, they've illustrated probably a river or something, but they have a pond, which is very often the case in these horizontal mills as well, so that they have control of the water, so that they are not depending on totally, they have some control of the supply of water coming into the mill. And you can see as well here that these illustrations, when they're well done, they can be amazing. I'm just after seeing here, as I looked at it a little more closely, talking to you, there's a sluice gate here, and this is a kind of an overflow to regulate the amount of water in the pond. So there is a lot of engineering in these mills. What look to us simple, but they were, the Google of the day, the Intel of the day. That's what they were. Now, I wanted to Kilbegly. Kilbegly does a beautiful volume published on it. I had the volume, I pulled it out there. Here it is here. And by Neil Jackman, who was in charge of the World Chart, Katrina Moore, who was a substantial part of it, and of course, Anne Cullen Moore was involved as well in, I would imagine, not so much probably the excavation, but the interpretation, etc., etc. And I just thought to give you a list of the people who contributed. If you don't have, just mention praising the book because it's a beautiful book. I think that I had somebody saying a time ago that it was sold out in array. So I'm sure there are copies of it around if you haven't got it. It's, as I say, it's really lovely. Now, going back again to the realities of the thing, I'll mention first of all, before I go on to the map, Annetta Overland. Annetta was, she completed her PhD with me here in Galway in the Paleo-Environmental Research Unit, and she was involved, and in fact she has done most of the lab work of what I'm talking to you, nearly all actually, of the lab work that I'm talking to you about. So, and we went off in 2011, and we published a paper in this journal, Review of Paleobotany Palynology. If you go in for this, by the way, you'll probably be faced with, they'll demand money off you. It'll be free within the universities, etc. But, if you want one of these just send me an email and I'll send you the PDF of it. So, and then this is just the Jackman et al. Book, the book itself. Now, coming along to the map, you can see the M6, Ballinasloe, and it's the motorway then winds up, crosses the River Suck, crosses this whole huge boggy area here, and then winds up onto higher ground. And here is Kilbegly. And there it is there. And then beside Kilbegly, that's the site of the mill. Beside it, it's marked here, I think, in this, there's a little dot. Kilbegly graveyard. It is a graveyard in the sense of that there's remains of a church, and I think it's thought that this was a kind of an offshoot of Clonmacnoise in medieval times, so hence the mill here. By the way, I just would like to mention to you as well, just this map, I've pulled it down today. Yeah, it was today. Yeah, from mappy.cz. Mappy, a wonderful app for your mobile phone, for your PC, for anything, wonderful maps, and it better in many ways than Google, actually. And there is, so that's the mill, and that's the other one is that. Now, again, Mappy has also the aerial photographs, and again, often better than Google. This is the aerial photograph from Mappy, which I pulled down today. And this is the mill as it is today. In this, all of this here was bog, really. You can see this is planted with conifers several years ago. This is reclaimed bog here. Probably the bog is extending right over there. It is, that's boggy as well. And then you're ascending right up here. You're driving along the motorway. Actually, more of my other half, she said to me, oh my God, can we ever forget Kilbegly? You always said when we were going over it in the car. You can, because as you go heading to Dublin, you can see the cemetery just here if you're wide awake. And so this is the cemetery, the graveyard, I should say, here. So that's the location. Yes. Now, there's some photos that I took during the time. So we were there in 2007, 2008. The excavations were taking place. I suppose they began, I think, about in 2007, probably. And this is it, no motorway, green countryside. We had a pollen profile from down here, but we've also several that I won't be talking to you about that one. We'll be talking to you about investigations we did in here. And so here they are working on the site, and the motorway is now coming over here on like that. And this is actually in November 2007, where again we were out at the site and the road was being built. As you know, these roads are really built at a helter-skelter pace once it starts. And so the mill, you're really heading over the, partly at least over the site as you're driving to Dublin from Galway, or vice versa. Now, a few photos from the site. I should say that I made ourselves really lucky. We only visited the site maybe twice or three times, I think it was. And we always hit days where great days to be at the excavation. And you can see pretty mucky. It's all this wet ground. This is the flume here. And this is the base which contained the mill wheel. And this is the tail race heading out west into that flat, wet area. Of course, all that bog was partly there at the time, certainly would be partly, but this is all more or less, you can see it's close to mineral ground. So that is the situation. And you can see it's on, that it was preserved. It hadn't a huge cover on it, but of course it's all wet. And so the preservation was just unbelievable. Now, this is a photograph here taken from the side, looking in at the flume. And the flume is a beautiful piece of wood carved out of oak, a big oak trunk. And it's inside, obviously carved out. It has a lid on it. You can see the wooden pegs holding on the lid. The water is coming in from the pond, which is out here, flowing rapidly down through it, and then out to hit the windmill here. And the windmill this is the base of the mill itself. So that is the situation. Now, as you can see here, there's still some of the original peat surrounding the mill. There was peat under this flume. It was resting on this mineral ground, and then peat and the rest. And here we are here again. You see the exact situation. I'll mention later there's a kind of a complicated structure here, piece of yew wood actually, that directs the water helps direct the water onto the paddle. So this is the flume, and you can see here there's a big square pond made of oak beams to have a supply of water here at this site. Then I think there just a slight bit upslope. There's almost certain springs. My recollection weren't that visible, but there must have been springs there that was supplying even a trickle of water, and having a pond there, they'll give sufficient water for the mill. I suppose one of the things about these mills actually is they don't need a lot of water to run them. I popped in this slide here just to show you, give you an idea of, this is from County Carty, one of these famous mills down in medieval mills discovered quite a time ago down in County Cork. And this is, I think this is an illustration, probably a Pollen Grain what will I say, the illustration, and you can see the amount of carpentry work. And think of it, they had probably simple iron tools. It was the Iron Age. It was post-Iron Age. It was medieval period after all. So simple iron tools. It's marvelous work. Now, there's a good bit of terminology in the whole thing, like you can see it listed up here, the hopper, the shoe to bring down the grain spills into the top, then the top wheel, the top millstone, the bottom millstone, which is stationary, the spindle that's going down onto the hub, and then you can see here there's a jet deflector. It says here H, the jet deflector, to make sure to optimize the water onto the paddles themselves. And then just have a look at this. I really like this part here, because the miller is standing up here, and it was probably he or she was using this, lifting it, basically lifted up this wheel, lifted, and this spindle here is attached to the top quern. Don't forget, it's putting the top quern moving around, and the miller is regulating the distance between the two stones, between the permanent stone and the moving stone, because I look at it. Oh, sorry, I have it the next illustration here. Here it is here. You see the spindle. He's called it here a rend, and it's pushing the top stone up so as to regulate the distance. And that, of course, is regulating how fine the flour is ground. So a lot of technology. No, I again just this is the undercraft. The undercraft, in other words, the base of the mill itself, and this is the flume coming in. This is in Kilbegly. This is at the site itself, and this is not my photo. It's in the book, the mill at Kilbegly, and there's a plate here which is a part of the aperture plate, and then this which was regulating a mechanism for the controlling the water coming in. And by the way, all as I've mentioned already, all oak, but this one, I think it's this one, is yew. So interesting enough, we might come back to that again later on. Now, again, here we are back in that day, August 2007, and this is Neil Jackman. Some of you know he's very much still around. He's an Englishman, but he has taken out Irish citizen. He's an Irish passport, and a really nice guy. And this is Cathy Moore, and Cathy is a wood expert, and she was on excavation all the time, and she studied, you know, the wood markings, etc., and deduced the implements they made and the details of how they made it. And so you can see here the flume again, a nice photograph of the flume, and you see this stuff here under it. Well, Neil is there about to sample that for us, and what happened was, here is the undercraft again, and the pond and the flume, and from under it he took 7 samples of peat. And now these 7 samples of peat, they're buried by the flume. They haven't been touched since the flume was set in position by the mill makers. And so we've called these samples FL 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And now, just to give you again a little bit of detail, here's the cemetery. I haven't mentioned that there's more archaeology than the mill here. There's a burn mound here as well, just a little bit upslope from the mill. This is where the mill is. This is I call it mire bog, kind of, that is where that is. That's where we took this core. I won't be mentioning that. And but so all our investigations that I'll talk to you about tonight here are coming from this little area here, plus this burn mound. So I think that's it. Now, from the samples, when we brought home those samples, these ones here, we, washed away the peat. And what was amazing about them was, again, the state of preservation. They were, it was brown peat. But when we washed away the peat, it was full of mosses, wonderfully preserved. Now, don't mind the Latin names for the moment. These are all mosses here. You can see there's hardly any sphagnum, bog moss. Not important at all. What they are woodland mosses. Now, 3 means abundant, 2 frequent, 1 occasional, plus rare. So that gives you an idea. So in each one, this is sample 1, 2, 3, and so on. I've hit something wrong. Go back again. Where am I going? Oh, I'm okay. And this is down at the end here. Oh, damn you. I might have to start it again. Don't worry, it'll come. I ran through it before and it didn't give this. I do restart the program, might help. Now let's work. Is it going to come up? I think I'll press it. Again, started. Oh yeah, there we are. There we are. Oh, I should, it doesn't matter, I'll run along. Hopefully it doesn't reoccur. Yeah. This one is the Fluke Fear, and the rest are from beneath the Flume. So just looking at these figures, you can see they're different. Other fragments down here, I'll mention this Isoetes, which is in some spores, megaspores, which are in some of them, little bits of birchwood. Rubus is the blackthorn, sorry, the briar, little bits of quartz stone, you know, just bits of little tiny bits of stone. That's nothing exceptional about that. Now, wait a second, I get it going again here. Yep. Oh, I hope it goes. Ah, no. You sod. Come on, come on. It's going back. Oh, it got there. Yeah, now, here we have the photographs taken on a microscope of the leaves. It was like as if I had gone out into a woodland and I had collected the mosses there and then. I could hardly tell the difference. Their preservation was just so wonderful. Here you can see this nice moss here, neem. If any of you were, even from your school days, you'll remember neem, and the cells of just one cell thick, the leaves, and beautifully preserved. Each of these little networks, these are cells. So absolutely beautifully preserved. Now, the mosses themselves, some of them, this Necra crispa, for instance, you can see, just maybe concentrate on this here, the distribution today, very little distribution, except in the very Western Ireland. It's common enough woodland moss, but, you know, today in that part of the world, really not there. Another really nice moss, very common there. Again, Western, today, Western Britain and Ireland. Then it was common, then at that time in Roscommon, because this thing has certainly come from there. Though that's common nearly in any woodland in Ireland today. So no surprise that was common. This one, not in every woodland, it wants to be a kind of a good old woodland. Again, that part of Roscommon, it's probably has been recorded there. That's about it. And I want to mention this one. I rather like this plant, this Lake Quillwort. I'll show you this distribution in a minute. It's a kind of related to the ferns. It produces, down here, it produces spores. I think it's dioecious actually, in the sense as it produces anyhow megaspores and microspores. And here the microspores produces a lot of them, the male version. The megaspores, the female version, produces fewer. There were, on 2 samples at least, we found now I want to be careful with this, the megaspores. This is the plant itself. The megaspores are produced down at the base. This is an actual plant. I think this is thing I photographed myself. These are the megaspores. They're pretty big. You'll see them with the naked eye easily. And again, looking at its distribution today, you can see all of Central Ireland. There are no records really. So, and by the way, it is sensitive to pollution, it is sensitive to human impact, and so on and so forth. So it tells us something about the early medieval environment at Kilbegly. You've seen heard of this plant before, this Plantago lanceolata Redwood Plant, and we used to play soldiers with the heads of it as kids. It has got these heads, which these are the stamens. Produces lots of pollen. Here is the pollen as we see it in the lab, and this, of course, is a key indicator for grassland, and also it kind of grows in disturbed ground. By the way, these two photographs here, I've just taken them actually relatively recently here beside me. It's a common plant, it's every place. Today, now, wait, let's see again. It's sometimes, oh no, what in the heaven's name? That's a bummer. I'm afraid to touch the, on the key here, I'm touching that, and then oh, it came up right. It came up. Grasses and wheat as well, and all the cereals produce also pollen. The cereals, not so much pollen. Here it is, here the anthers sticking out. They're real flowers, but they don't have petals, etc. So, but we shouldn't forget they have real flowers. And again, for us pollen analysts, this is a cereal pollen grain from Loch Shions, dated to the early Neolithic, huge grain. It's folded, by the way, there. So you can imagine it's like a football in reality. And it has got a pore in it through which the germ tube comes out in real life. And around the pore, it has got this large annulus. So you can readily identify it as a cereal pollen. And here again, up a little bit nearer to you in Sligo, Carron at Loch, this is from a long, long time ago. This is just an exceptionally large cereal pollen grain. By the way, these cereal pollen grains, they are ranging from about 40 to 60 mu. So what is that? A mu is a millionth of a meter. So a thousandth of a millimeter, a mu. So these, you'll see them, these grains I'm showing you here. By the way, Plantago is only half that size. With these ones, you will see them, if you have sharp eyes, you'll just about make them out as grains. You haven't a hope of seeing the detail, of course. Now, I mentioned this one here, it comes up later on, bracken, which is all over the place, and which is with us for a long, long, long time, since the early post-glacial, really. And it produces lots of spores. The spores are at the back of the leaves, the pinnules. And that's the spore type. Now, I won't spend a lot of time on this, but I would like to a little bit to explain to you what we found, what Annetta counted. She counted the fossil pollen in each of the samples. This is the Flume down at the bottom because it's the oldest, and then these are the samples from beneath the Flume. All should be about the same age. All should have been similar pollen content, fossil pollen content. The gray here is the amount of this. This is hazel, Corylus, hazel. And here it is plotted out here in big. And you can see that there is 150 times, not 150 times, over twice, 250%, over twice the amount of hazel in the Flume sample. The sample was the same. By the way, the sample from the Fullock Field, it was used as caulking, you know, in the trough, in the Fullock Field. So in other words, the context is very similar. So much, much more hazel. Then the deep blue, very little of it. Here, there is more of it. I will run next to there's ferns, there's the grassland pollen, the green. Here's the grassland pollen, includes Plantago. Where is Plantago? It's down here. This is Plantago. This is the Redwood Plant. By the way, this part here, it's a continuation across here. I think I'm going to turn off that pointer. It might be the cause of my downfall. If I get it back again. I'll have to do without it. I'm feeling it is, because I hadn't a pointer earlier on when I ran through this, and there was nothing like this. So I'll turn it off. It won't go off for me. Now I'll just come down here. I can start. I'm getting used to this. Okay, I'll just use this not to that other point, or maybe it might help. So basically my point is that there is here lots of grassland. So it is an open environment when this mill was being set out, compared with the environment that was there in Fullock Field time, in the Bronze Age, in the mid-Bronze Age. Now, the radiocarbon dates, you can see here we have 3. So I will not debate much longer. I'll move on to, these are just highlighting I've done. Move on to this. Here is a summary of the pollen in the 7 samples from the Fullock Field and the 7 samples from the mill beneath the Flume and the 1 sample from the Fullock Field. Main thing to see is this is arboreal pollen, trees and shrubs. And this is oak, this is hazel, the light blue, the key is here, and this is other arboreal pollen. So you can see the huge difference between the environment at the Fullock Field time compared with the mill. And again, if you look at grasses and plantago and the rest of the non-arboreal pollen grassland type, here it's here, and here it's tiny. So a totally different environment. So I'm hoping I've convinced you the very different environment that was there in the late Bronze Age and at the time mill construction. Now, if you look at the radiocarbon dates, this is the radiocarbon date from the full sphere, and you can see here it is mid to early-ish Bronze Age. You have to read it off here. This is the calibration curve, because as you know, you can't take this date. You can't read it off as calendar years and say it is 3,487 years before now or before 1950. You can't do that. So it is converted by the calibration program, and the middle of it here gives you a good idea. In other words, 1,800 BC, so well into the Bronze Age. Look at them here. The three dates, they are all pretty similar. They are all in the medieval period. They are all in the early medieval period. Let us say 800 or a little earlier AD. So the dating for this, by the way, there have been dendro dates as well for the oak. Now, I didn't look that up actually before I came on. So, but it's all, the dating of Kilbegly as well as everything else is secure. I want to tell you now, sorry, the other point I should make in this is, you can see here that in neither of these sets of samples is there much arable or disturbed pollen. After all, this is a bloody mill, so you'd expect them. They must have been, they weren't taking the grain from Athlone or something. It must be growing locally. So that is one of the rather surprising things. And I should say as well, the macrofossil analysis, which was done, I think, down in Cork, that was done there. And again, very, very little cereal grain, which again is kind of amazing. You'd begin to doubt, my God, was this a mill at all, nearly, from this type of evidence? Now, I want to bring you then, again, the picture of the site here. Here's the mill, here's the mill pond, and there was a channel cut out here that they thought might be an overflow channel. In other words, if this pond filled up too much, that the water could spill out and not cause havoc here. Now, from this, we sampled some peaty samples that were peaty material that was in this channel. Here it is here, this little monolith, and we analyzed the pollen in this. And again, the story here is pretty simple in the sense of that we were really relieved. Down here at the bottom of that little sod of peat, giving a date of 1190, correct date, radiocarbon years. In other words, around the 800, huge amounts of cereal pollen. This is it in concentration terms. We don't have to worry about that, but huge amounts, kind of to get something like, let us say, 25% or more, or 30% or more cereal pollen is kind of unknown. So, you know, what is represented here, well, obviously it's associated with the mill. You know, there's a possibility that actually it might have been in this drainage channel. I'm kind of letting my imagination go a little bit rife here, maybe, that let us say the mill would have been thatched with straw and there would have been cereal remains in it. It would be straw from cereals, and maybe in a little wind it could have blown off and into this ditch and be preserved. And so we are picking up. This might be why there's such a concentration of cereal pollen in those two samples at the base. So that is the best evidence we have that for cereal growing, and we are really, and by the way as well, rye is a feature, it's of some early medieval times. It became reasonably common at some sites only. Here at Kilbegly, in these samples anyhow, there's hardly any rye pollen, just a few, that's about it. Now, so the early medieval period, as you guess from what we're talking about, it's the golden age of Ireland. And again, I just pulled up this here because I thought this is interesting to show you how rich Ireland is in these type of remains. In this little site, Raystown, in County Meath, 8 watermills, looking along here, have been discovered. And again, there's a monograph published on that by the LRA. Now, I want to give you kind of a bit of a regional context. Again, I'll breeze through it, I think, hopefully rapidly. You might remember Kilbegly is here. Maybe I forget whether I have points in. I haven't. Kilbegly here near Ballinasloe, and this pier here, Ballinfield. Jerry O'Sullivan, who has been very kind to us, actually, the archaeologist in charge of the archaeology down here and the NRA archaeology, etc. And he got us to do a long pollen core from this bog here, this raised bog. And it was published in this book, actually. Some of you have seen Kathleen Ancient in Modern Ireland. So from this, then I have a few photographs here. These are reproduced in the book. That's us out Corey and Etta overland here, and others. That's Karen Malloy here, and the usual collection of cores. We are using this Usinger core. Usinger, by the way, from Usinger in Kiel, the university, who invented this beautiful piston core. And this is the type of beautiful cores this takes. By the way, Sligo cores of the noughties were cored using this coral. They took 2 sets of parallel cores. You can see a lot of sediment in this bog, peat and sediment, 12 meters in total we got. So it's going back in late glacial times, going back over 12,000 years. Now, what I want to do again, I'm not going to detail you with this, but I just pick out 1 or 2 of these graphs. These are all in this book. This one here is telling you the amount of total arboreal pollen, and this is the amount of that arboreal pollen that's made up of hazel. And you can see it is 80% for most of the time. And the time is going from 4000 BC, in other words, probably just pre-Neolithic up to recent time. So in other words, it's a wooded landscape with some openings, with some diminishing of some openings in it for all of that time until we come up here into something like 1500. Oh, I've just put in some, I'll just go to this marking. This marking here is the late Iron Age, and some of you may have heard me talking before about the late Iron Age lull, when the pollen shows a regeneration of woody vegetation, less plantago, less everything else. So there's very little activity. And now I'm going the wrong way. Let me pull on here to, this is Kilbegly mill time. And you can see a little diminishing, some diminishing of the arboreal pollen. The plantago levels have risen substantially. They've 4 or 5 times what they were, 6 times. There's a peak in overall grassy pollen from grassland. So this is, in the regional picture, it is a period of strong farming. And you can see here, just look at the cereal pollen, the red line here. There was cereal growing, then it finished. Then once we come into the medieval period, we see increased cereal production. So this is a kind of, this complements, I think, in a way, in a good way, the Kilbegly picture of what's going on in the regional landscape at this time. I'll just move on then. Now, just to finish up with the Kilbegly stuff. This was, I was again really lucky. Annette and myself arrived down on the day that they were removing the main parts. And of course, here is the flume, which is the most important and the heaviest bit. All wrapped up in plastic, all ready to go. And Valerie Keeley and company, they videoed the whole thing actually. Again, you know, this was the equipment brought in. This is I don't know, it was half a ton probably at least, you know, really heavy, wet. Here it is here with this gantry to help lift it. It has to be put into this box. Sorry, I should be pointing out with this. I'm pointing out my pen here. It was silly. It has been put into this box. Again, being lifted to be put into its coffin, as it were. There it is being lifted. Annette herself, and here it is watching the operation as it goes into its box, and here it is being carried up to the road up at the graveyard. Now, just very quickly, where it is in winter, the Yorkshire Archaeological Trust, this is Ian Panter, this is their mechanism for preserving wood, etc., etc. It was Jerry O'Sullivan gave me this. Actually, he gave me this just shortly before the Kilbegly talk, I think. And this is it coming back into store in Swords. Now, where it is in the meantime, I haven't followed up. Maybe some of you know, I don't know. Actually, my understanding was that they were looking for some place that would, some suitable place to store it, to exhibit it, really. Because it is something, you know, it is the preservation, etc., etc., the detail we have of it, so on, it's extraordinary. Just to widen your perspective a little bit, a few more slides in, if you don't mind. I was in Orkney in 2013, and as I mentioned before, Orkney is just wonderful. And there is what they call a click mill in the mainland in Orkney. And here it is. It was working up to recently. It has been restored. This is probably just a shaft for in or out, or thrown out rubbish, possibly into the stream. But the diverted stream is coming here through the mill, in here and out here. Just to show you, this is the workings inside. You can see it's exact. There's that, and then this is the stream flowing through. This is the mill, the miller, and the hopper, and the grain being fed in. It's called a click because apparently there's a little button here on the top, and that hits the chute going in from the hopper, and so ensures that the grain comes in. Now, there was nobody at this side. That's one of the wonderful things about Orkney, by the way, is you can go along, and it was the case in 2013, I presume it still is. You could go along to these sites, these fantastic sites. And of course, the Neolithic archaeology is magnificent as well, is really magnificent. You go along to these sites and they're all open, there are pathways into them, just lovely. And this is the reconstructed inside, and you can see here that there aren't paddles. They're just these the fans in the, and there are 2 layers of them in that. By the way, Pollen Grain has a whole lot. There's a whole technology science as well in the pedals that are on the water wheel as well, which I haven't gone into. Which I'm will be only telling you anyhow what Pollen Grain has said. Of course, these mills, they were well known in medieval times. Luckily, our Renaissance artists sketched them. This is a horizontal overshot mill here by no less than Albrecht Dürer, the famous German medieval artist living around the same time as Michelangelo. We were fortunate enough actually at the time with a calendar here at home where this was featured in it. And finally, I'm coming along to something else. I'm indebted to Martin Timoney, who has sent me some. I haven't all of the volumes now, mind you, but I have some of the volumes that come out from the Sligo Field Club. I would say, Sligo Field Club are putting it up to the Galway Archaeological Historical Society. We are going for over 100 years here, but and we do produce it. I think we pride ourselves in the journal that's produced here. But this is certainly equal, in ways better than it. Beautiful journal. So Martin, I'd like to say thanks to you for sending this down to me recently. And of course, I was all the more pleased when I looked at the back of it and saw what was in it. Here is an article on pollen, if you remind nothing else. Here is probably Suzanne Stulze, who was part of the Galway Kiel Sligo research program in the noughties, and she has continued on with her, luckily, with her interest in Sligo, etc., has contributed several papers on the Neolithic impact on environment, vegetation, lakes, etc., on Sligo, in which Paleo-Environmental Research Unit in Galway has also been kind of participated with her. So that was one of the really nice articles. Now, I'm in danger of offending the people because there are several. You can just look down at the names, and anybody is here featuring. But I just picked out this one here because I caught my eye. Of course, the Arbutus tree by Don Cotton and my colleague. We soldiered in the Department of Botany in NUI Galway for many years, Michelle and Cheese, Skeffington, and an account of Arbutus in Lough Gill, where apparently it has greatly diminished. So really nice to see that. John Quinn, One Sligo Museum. I'm mentioning this actually is because partly it is because I just to tell you really a little bit about my recent life. I spent 3 weeks in Poland and went mainly in Warsaw, but I was also up in Gdansk, which is just beautiful city. Also in a medieval city, beautiful. You never hear of it here, Torun, and also in the late the industrial era city, 1800s, Łódź, L-O-D-Z. I think they pronounce it something like Łódź. All beautiful, but I should say is that I think Poles in Ireland, they must be a bit disappointed in us. I think, there are many Poles in the audience, must be a bit disappointed in the sense of that the money, the effort that they've invested in their museums is just unbelievable. I know you, I'm sure all of you are interested in museums as well. I have a bit of an interest in museums, and I suppose obviously we have to fight, make our voice heard, and because museums are really important. I don't have to say that. And by the way, as well, they're public monuments, they are parks of they are really impressive. So, you know, we are not, I would say, leading the way by any manner of means in this. And actually, while I'm here, I might as well say, I had visitors here from the continent, from Germany, during the summer, and they mentioned being in the National Museum in Kildare Street, the main museum, and they expressed a sense of disappointment not with the objects, but with the displays and with the information conveyed to the public. I'm just mentioning this, we are here, you know, I suppose it's no harm for us to hear these opinions. They may or may not be correct, but, you know, after all, it is clubs like the Sligo Field Club, Galway Archaeological Historical Society, and these circles, these are there to, I suppose one of the functions is really to press for better service. I want a free lunch out of this. Do you hear there, Martin, Sally? You hear this? This is my free lunch. I'm advertising an article which is about to appear. I've seen the proofs 3 times. I think it's going to be it's going to appear next week probably. In this, it's a new online journal of geography. I've selected it. There are 3 of us involved. Anita Jennings, who was a student here in the 90s, Karen Malloy, I'm sure you all know, or a lot of you know, a colleague worked with me. She was my first PhD student, actually. And we've worked for a year now on this paper, a long paper. Choose this journal because they sent me an email saying, would you contribute to us? We are launching a new journal. And it's online, it's open access, and it'll be free to you as one of our invitees. So I said, don't look gift horse in the mouth. And so I said, yes, I will. And so I think this is about 20,000 words on it. No journal would otherwise take it. And so I am pretty pleased, probably that, you know, that to have got this. It's a summary of a lot of stuff that we'd never published and other bits and pieces relating to Connemara, bog deal, and lots of things. So that's that. Finally, I'd like to thank Martin Timoney for asking me, and also for sending me this several photos actually of this model of a working watermill in Drum, west of Atlow, and I think probably in County Roscommon. I don't know it. I didn't know of it. So again, it looks like a place to visit and see. And again, the reconstruction looks real good. Thanks for paying attention to me and listening to me and having had me. Okay.